Lila loved a good mystery. She loved abandoned places even more. Creaky houses, forgotten graveyards, empty schools they all called to her adventurous spirit. She imagined the stories these places held, the secrets whispered in the dust. Lila carried a worn notebook and a trusty flashlight everywhere she went. She documented her explorations, sketching crumbling walls and transcribing faded inscriptions. Each page of her notebook held the thrill of discovery and the weight of forgotten stories. One day, Lila heard a new whisper. It spoke of a ghost train appearing only at midnight near her town. The legend claimed it emerged from the fog, a spectral engine pulling phantom carriages. It was said to be searching for something lost long ago. Lila knew she had to see it. She had to experience the mystery for herself. The legend sent shivers down her spine, but it also filled her with a sense of anticipation. This was the adventure she'd been waiting for. The abandoned forest tracks at the edge of town were calling her name. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Lila felt a familiar flutter in her chest as she walked towards the abandoned train tracks. The air grew cooler, heavy with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. The forest seemed to press in around her, the trees like gnarled fingers reaching out to grab her. Their branches swayed gently, even though there wasn't a breath of wind. She could have sworn she heard whispers carried on the breeze. Lila shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. The setting sun cast long, eerie shadows that danced and twisted around her. Despite the fear creeping up her spine, she pressed on, her curiosity outweighing her apprehension. As darkness descended, Lila reached the overgrown tracks. They disappeared into the gloom, swallowed by the looming forest. She pulled out her flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness like a beacon. It was almost midnight. A low rumble echoed through the still night air. Lila held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. The ground beneath her feet began to tremble slightly. A thick fog rolled in, swirling around her like ghostly fingers, obscuring the world around her in an eerie blanket. Through the swirling mist, a faint light appeared in the distance. It grew steadily brighter, illuminating the fog with an otherworldly glow. Lila watched, mesmerized, as the shape of a train slowly emerged from the swirling whiteness. The train was ancient and imposing, its black paint gleaming under the spectral light. The engine, a hulking mass of iron and steam, chugged and hissed, spewing plumes of white smoke that swirled and dissipated into the fog. Carriage after carriage followed, their windows dark and impenetrable. Lila felt a strange pull towards the train, a mixture of fear and fascination that rooted her to the spot. Her every instinct screamed at her to run, but her curiosity held her captive. The train screeched to a halt in front of her, the sound like a scream in the stillness of the night. The fog swirled around the train, momentarily obscuring it from view, then cleared just as quickly, revealing a set of steps that had not been there before. They glowed faintly, inviting her closer. Lila hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the worn leather cover of her notebook. This was it. This was the moment of truth. She could turn back, run back into the safety of the forest, and forget all about the ghost train. Taking a deep breath, Lila decided. She tucked her notebook securely into her backpack and climbed aboard the train. The moment her foot touched the first step, the train shuddered, as if waking from a deep sleep. The doors hissed open, revealing an interior that was just as unsettling as the train's exterior. The train car was immaculate. Gone were the cobwebs and dust she had expected. Instead, she found plush velvet seats, polished mahogany, and gleaming golden chandeliers that bathed the interior in a warm, inviting light. It was like stepping into a time capsule, a glimpse into a forgotten era. Lila cautiously made her way down the aisle, her sneakers sinking into the thick carpet. The air was heavy with the scent of dust and something else she couldn't quite place. A strange mixture of ozone and roses. A shiver ran down her spine as a gust of cold air brushed past her cheek. The train car was empty, yet she felt a presence, a sense of being watched. As she passed each window, she glanced quickly at her reflection, half expecting to see something other than her own terrified face staring back at her. In one of the windows, she caught a fleeting glimpse of a woman in a long, flowing gown. The woman had her back to Lila, her hair a cascade of golden curls that fell down her back. She seemed to be staring out of the window, her reflection shimmering in the dim light. Lila spun around, but the seat in front of the window was empty. She was alone. Or was she? Her heart raced as she realized that the train was moving. It glided silently along the tracks, picking up speed with each passing moment. But there were no tracks. They were hurtling through a swirling void of stars and darkness. Section 6. Into the void. Lila gripped the back of a seat for support as the train plunged through the void. Stars streaked past the windows, leaving trails of light in their wake. The train seemed to be flying, unconstrained by gravity or the laws of physics. Whispers filled the air around her, soft and indistinct at first, then growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to seep from the walls of the train itself, carrying fragments of conversations, snippets of laughter and screams. The whispers swirled around her, tugging at her sanity. They spoke of a treasure, a chest filled with riches beyond imagination. But they also spoke of a curse, a heavy price to be paid for disturbing what was rightfully theirs. Lila's head spun. She couldn't make sense of the whispers, the swirling void, the impossible train ride. It was as if she'd stepped into a nightmare, a dreamscape where logic had no power. Section 7. A Chest of Wonders. As quickly as it had begun, the train ride ended. The train slowed, the whispers fading into silence as it pulled to a stop in front of a platform bathed in an ethereal white light. Lila's eyes widened in astonishment as she stepped off the train and onto the platform. In the center of the platform sat a chest. It was ornately carved and adorned with precious stones that glittered under the spectral light. Lila's hand trembled as she reached out to touch it. It was ice-cold beneath her fingertips. She knew, without a doubt, that this was the treasure the whispers had spoken of. The chest pulsed with an energy that both terrified and enticed her. Lila's mind raced, imagining the riches it held. She threw open the chest. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a collection of objects that took her breath away. There were golden coins, sparkling jewels, and ancient artifacts that shimmered with an otherworldly light. Section 8. A ghostly warning. As Lila reached for a handful of gold coins, a chorus of ghostly wails erupted around her. The air grew frigid, and a cold wind whipped around her, tugging at her clothes and hair. The whispers returned, their tone harsh and unforgiving. "Don't touch it," they hissed. "The treasure is cursed." Lila froze, her hand hovering over the shimmering pile of coins. The whispers intensified, swirling around her like a vortex of despair. They spoke of greed, of betrayal, of lives lost in pursuit of the treasure. The image of the beautiful woman she had seen in the train window flashed in her mind. Now the woman's face was twisted in agony, her eyes filled with a deep sorrow. Lila understood. The treasure came at a price she was not willing to pay. Lila withdrew her hand from the chest, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she couldn't keep the treasure, not if it meant bringing more sorrow and despair into the world. Section 9. The Vanishing Train. Taking a deep breath, Lila closed the chest. The ghostly wails ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. The platform began to shimmer and fade, the light around her flickering like a dying candle. Lila turned and saw that the train was disappearing, its form becoming translucent, the edges blurring as if it were being erased from existence. She knew she had to get off the platform, back to her own world before it was too late. She sprinted towards the edge of the platform and jumped. She landed on the hard ground with a thud, the breath knocked out of her. Scrambling to her feet, Lila looked back at the platform, but it was gone. Standing there in the darkness, her heart still pounding in her chest, Lila knew she had been given a rare glimpse into a world beyond her own. She had faced her fears and made the right decision. The treasure, she realized, was not meant for her. As she made her way back through the forest, the first rays of dawn were just beginning to break through the darkness. Lila paused, glancing back over her shoulder at the train tracks. Were they her imagination, or did she see a faint wisp of smoke curling up into the air as if from a distant train?